chapter 8, and let's begin reading in verse 1. Mark chapter 8, verse 1. We read this. In those days, the multitude being very great and having nothing to eat, called Jesus. Jesus called his disciples to him and said to them, I have compassion on the multitude, because they have now continued with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. And if I send them away hungry to their own houses, they will faint on the way, for some of them have come from afar. Then his disciples answered him, How can we satisfy these people with bread here in the wilderness? He asked them, How many loaves do you have? And they said, 7. So he commanded the multitudes to sit down on the ground, and he took the 7 loaves and gave thanks, broke them and gave them to his disciples, and set them before them, and they set them before the multitude. They also had a few small fish, and having blessed them, he set them also before them. So they ate and were filled, and they took up 7 large baskets of leftover fragments. Now those who had eaten were about 4,000, and he sent them away. The title for my devotion this morning is The God Who Feeds Us. And I think there's a number of things that the Lord wants us to be encouraged by in this story. It's a familiar story. You've heard this before. But I think there's some truths that the Lord wants us to apply and be strengthened by today. First of all, look at verse 3. It says, Jesus recognized the need of the people, the condition of the people. He said, some of them have come from afar. I'm going to share with you 5 things this morning, 5 practical lessons that I think we can be encouraged by. The first practical lesson is here in verse 3, where Jesus knows the condition of the people. He knows the challenges that they're facing. And I think that's an encouragement to you and me. In your day today, no matter what you're doing, Jesus knows the challenges that you're facing today. He knows the hardships that you're facing. You know, one of the most hurtful things, one of the most painful things that can come to us is for us to feel like we're all alone, like no one knows what we're going through, no one can relate what we're going through. But here in verse 3, where Jesus says, I have compassion on this people because they've come from afar. Jesus knew the condition of the people. He knew they'd come from a long ways, and they'd been with him for quite a while and hadn't been fed. And just as Jesus knew the condition of those people, I want you to be encouraged this morning that Jesus knows your condition. Jesus knows the challenges that you're facing. Whether it's family challenges, whether it's financial challenges, whether it's health challenges, whether it's relationship challenges, whatever challenge you might be going through this morning, Jesus knows the challenges, the hardships that you may be facing today. And just as Jesus is going to satisfy the needs of these people, I want you to be encouraged that Jesus is going to satisfy your needs today, tomorrow, and in the future. So that's the first encouragement I think we can take from this story, that Jesus knows the challenges that you're facing. Also, look at verse 4. The disciples say, how can we possibly get enough food to feed so many in such a remote place? Here's another encouragement for us. The disciples are overwhelmed by the problem. They say, Lord, there's so many people, and we're not close to Lee Plaza. We can't go to Jollibee. We're so far, we're out in the wilderness, in the desert, in a remote place. How are we possibly going to get enough food for these people? The problem seemed overwhelming to the disciples. And here's another encouragement, kind of a challenge to you and me. Don't be overwhelmed by the size of the problem. Is there any problem too big for God? Is there any problem too big for God? And of course the answer to that is no. This is the problem that the Israelites faced back in the time of King Saul and the young boy David. Remember when Goliath came out and was and the Philistines were waging war against the children of Israel. King Saul and the entire nation of Israel, the entire army of Israel, they were overwhelmed by the size of Goliath. The soldiers were sitting back there, man, how tall do you think that guy is? Is he 8 feet tall? And the guy next, no, man, he's probably 9 feet tall. I mean, and they're saying, man, look at his armor. I wonder how much his armor weighs. I bet his armor weighs like 800 shekels. And the guy goes, no, man, probably weighs 900 shekels. I mean, they were dissecting the problem. They were magnifying the problem. They were focused on the problem, instead of being focused on the God who is bigger than any possible problem. So I think another encouragement, another reminder for you and me this morning is don't be overwhelmed by the size of the problem. You might think you're facing a big challenge today, tomorrow, in the future, but the Lord wants you to remember nothing is too difficult for Him. No problem is too big for Him. So the second encouragement is don't be overwhelmed by the size of the problem. Nothing is too big from the Lord. Also, still in verse 4, the disciples say, how can we possibly get enough food to feed so many in this remote place? Here's another encouragement to you and me, and the encouragement is, the lesson is, remember how God has already shown Himself faithful to you. If we had time to go around the room, I'm convinced every single one of you can give at least one example where the Lord has worked powerfully in your life. Even in the midst of difficult circumstances, all of you could share how the Lord has shown Himself. We sung about the Lord's faithfulness this morning. He's been faithful to every single one of us. So many of you, it's a miracle that you're here this morning. It's a miracle that you're on this campus. You never would have thought it possible that you could be here. You know, there's so many obstacles and so on. And I think an important encouragement for us is to remember how the Lord has been faithful to us in the past. Because if He's been faithful to us in the past, does that mean He's going to be faithful to us today for the challenges that we're facing today? Absolutely, yes. Now this is an interesting miracle, because this miracle, this is commonly called the feeding of the 4,000. A couple of chapters earlier, back in Mark chapter 6, was the feeding of the 5,000. And that's a very common miracle. In fact, it's interesting, the feeding of the 5,000 is one of the miracles of Jesus that is recorded in all four Gospels. Not all the miracles of Jesus are in all four Gospels, but the feeding of the 5,000 in Mark chapter 6 is found in all four Gospels. This particular miracle, the feeding of the 4,000, is described here in Mark. But if we look back to Mark chapter 6, if we think back there for a minute, at that miracle, there were 5,000 people. Now it's 5,000 men, besides women and children, but 5,000 men that needed to be fed. This time, it's recorded that there's only 4,000. So notice, this is a smaller problem than what they had already seen Jesus accomplish before. Last time it was 5,000, and Jesus miraculously fed them. Okay? Now, today it is 4,000. Should they have remembered what Jesus had already done just a short time before? Should they have said, hey, Jesus before, He fed 5,000, and today, facing us right now, is only 4,000. Hey, this is a smaller problem. Jesus solved the bigger problem before. This problem is nothing for Jesus. In other words, they should have remembered what they had already seen. They should have remembered what God had already done. Jesus had already fed more people. And what's interesting, if you look back to Mark chapter 6, at that time, they had less provision. They only had, we're told, 5 loaves. Last time they only had 5 loaves. How many loaves do they have this time? They have 7 loaves. So notice, last time, the feeding of the 5,000, they had a bigger problem with less provision. This time, they have a smaller problem and they have more provision. When Jesus posed them this question, and Jesus was testing them, He goes, you know, here's all this big crowd, and they'd already seen what Jesus had done before, and He tests them. He goes, where am I going to get food for all these people? You know, some of the disciples should have said, hey, I remember what Jesus did with more people and less loaves. Oh, I remember. So when Jesus said, where are we going to get loaves? They should have said, it's no problem, Lord. You have it all under control. You're going to take care of the problem. You have all power. That's what they should have said. What they had seen in the past should have given them confidence in the future of what they were facing right now. They should have said, no problem, Lord. You got it under control. We're excited to see you work, Lord. They should have just been excited that Jesus was going to work a miracle. But they started dissecting the problem. Oh, where are we going to get enough food? There's so many people here. Notice, they forgot what they had already seen. They forgot the faithfulness of God they had already seen. So that's the third thing that I think the Lord wants us to be encouraged and reminded of this morning, is to remember how you have already seen the Lord work powerfully in your lives. Because every single one of you have seen the faithfulness of God in your lives. Every single one of you have seen the power of God in your lives. And so we need to remember the past faithfulness of God, so that will give us encouragement today, tomorrow, and in the future. A fourth lesson, a fourth teaching that I think the Lord wants us to remember and be encouraged by, and this is kind of one of the main points I want to make this morning, is in verse 6. In verse 6, the Lord tells them to bring what they have to Him. He commanded the multitude to sit down on the ground. He took the 7 loaves and gave thanks, broke them and gave them to His disciples to set before them, and they set them before the people. He says in verse 5, how many loaves do you have? They said 7, and then Jesus works with that. They only had a little to bring to the Lord. And this is one major point that I want you to, if you remember just one thing from this morning, remember this point. And the point is, bring the little that you have to the Lord, and let the Lord multiply it. Bring the little that you have to the Lord, and let the Lord multiply it. So often we tend to think, well, I don't have that much to offer. I'm just, I'm not famous. I'm not like Pastor Chuck, who started over 1,000 different Calvary chapels and Bible colleges over the world. I'm not like Greg Laurie or Skip Heitzig. I don't have a mega church of 3,000, 4,000 people. A lot of us can think that we don't have that much to offer. But this miracle is teaching all of us the important lesson is just bring the little that you have to the Lord, and the Lord can work miracles. The Lord can work wonders with just the little that you have. It says in the Old Testament, in the book of Zechariah 4:10, do not despise the day of small things. God can work amazing miracles with just small things. And that's what we're reminded of here in this miracle. Just bring the little that you have to the Lord. Don't think that your contribution is small. Don't think that you're unimportant or insignificant. The contribution that you have is huge to the body of Christ. We call, Christianity, we call this fellowship the body of Christ. Is every part of the body important? Is every part of the body important? Absolutely. Years ago, when I was walking barefoot, I was walking in my house, and I didn't see one of the chairs there, and I hit my toe, my little pinky toe, on the chair there, and I hit it really hard, and it really, I didn't break it, but I sprained it really bad. Just the little toe, not the big toe, but just the little toe. And because that little toe hurt, I was limping around for days. And then I found, after a couple of days, my knees started to hurt, because I was limping. I was putting too much weight on this, and my hip started to hurt because I was limping, because that little teeny part of the body, was in pain, wasn't working right. It caused the whole rest of my body to be out of balance. It caused pain in the whole rest of my body. And the same thing for you and me. Every single one of you is vital to the work of God. God has an amazing plan for every single one of you. You might think, oh, I don't have a big church. Didn't come from a rich family. I didn't, go to the fanciest college or whatever. Satan wants you to think that you're not very important. Satan wants you to think that you cannot make a big contribution to the Lord, but that's a lie. The truth is, every single one of you are vital for the kingdom of God, and God has a huge, significant, fulfilling plan for every single one of you. All you have to do is just offer yourself to the Lord. Bring the little that you have to the Lord and let Him multiply it, because Jesus is the master of multiplication. He is the master of multiplying even just what we think is insignificant. He is the master of multiplying that. So no matter what you're doing today, whether you're in class, whether you're working in the office, whether you're working on the grounds, whether you're teaching in Olivet, no matter what you're doing today, you might think that you're not making a big contribution, but in the Lord's eyes, every single one of you is vital. Every single one of you is indispensable, unbelievably important. And the Lord wants to make a huge contribution for His kingdom and for His glory through every single one of you. Just bring the little that you just offer to the Lord yourself today and every day. Offer to the Lord the little that you have and watch what He's going to do with it. He is the master of multiplication. And then one last point I want to make is notice in these verses that did Jesus need the disciples there? Did Jesus need to work through the disciples? No, He didn't. Jesus doesn't need anybody. But notice what Jesus did. Instead of Jesus distributing the food Himself, what did Jesus do? He gave it to the disciples and allowed the disciples to give it to the people. The fifth thing to remember, the fifth encouragement is God is eager to work through His people. Raise your hand if you're one of God's people. So who does God want to work through? Every single one of you, yeah. God is eager to work through His people. He doesn't need any of us. But what did He choose to do? He chose to give the food to the disciples and let the disciples give it to the people. And same thing today. God is eager to work through every single one of you. Every single one of you have a contribution to make today, tomorrow, and in the days ahead. Each one of you knows people that no one else knows. Pastor Joe, Pastor Michael, they don't know your family, your uncles, your friends, and your neighbors. There's no way Pastor Joe could minister to all the people you know. There's no way Pastor Michael could minister to all the people you know. But you know the people that you know. You know the people in your sphere of influence. God is eager to work through every single one of you in a powerful way. Among your friends, your family, your relatives, your acquaintances, and so on, God is eager to work through every single one of you. So my encouragement today that we can take from this chapter is bring the little that you have, just bring it to the Lord. Offer it to the Lord and say, Lord, use me today for your kingdom, for your purposes, for your glory. Bring the little that you have to the Lord and let Him multiply it. Because, just like we see in the story,